Hello, you're watching Eye on Africa. I'm James Creedon. These are our headlines this evening. Kenya's High Court pushes back against President Uhuru Kenyatta's bid to push through constitutional changes. We'll hear more from our correspondent in Nairobi about that decision. In Mozambique, Amnesty International says white people were given preferential treatment in evacuating the town of Palma during a raid by Islamists last March. More on that report coming up. And in Ghana, worship is increasingly via radio and online broadcasts due to the pandemic. We'll take a look at how the country's large Christian population is adapting to the context of COVID-19. Thanks for watching. We start in Kenya and the decision by the country's High Court to put a stop to constitutional reforms that President Kenyatta has been seeking to push through. It means that the so-called Building Bridges initiative now won't go ahead as planned. That reform would have watered down the current winner-takes-it-all electoral system. Now, critics of the proposed reforms have likened it to a power grab by Uhuru Kenyatta. For more on the significance of that decision, we can cross now to Nairobi and Ruben Kiyama. Good to have you with us, Ruben. That court decision has been described as scathing by some. Tell us more about the decision and what have the reactions been today in Nairobi.
Thank you for having me. Yes, this is quite a landmark decision that came as a surprise to many. The critics say that this landmark decision has saved the constitution that was adopted. Adopted in 2020. That was adopted in 2010. But at the same time, this decision came as a surprise because the parliament has just passed the proposed amendments that were seeking to change the structures of the government, but the latest is that the proponents of this amendment have already said that they are going to appeal. They are going to a high court. They are going to a higher court on Monday to sort of challenge the ruling by the court.
Okay, and President Kenyatta's supporters say the current electoral system has caused repeated post-electoral conflicts in Kenya. How much truth is there to that? Is the current system problematic? Does it lead to conflict very regularly? And does it merit reform?
To some extent, we've seen repeated violence after each and every election, and the two leaders, that is the president and also the prime minister, who are the proponents of this initiative, said that this was one way to address that cycle of political violence after each and every election, and it was also a way of sort of making the politics inclusive so that they can address the issue of tribal politics that tends to sort of bring tensions when there are elections. But also there is the other school of thought, the critics, who also say that this debate was actually was linked with the battle to succeed Kenyatta, and it was in one way trying to sort of reward some political leaders, and also to sort of stop others from running for presidency in next year when President Kenyatta steps down.
Okay, well, look, thank you for those insights into that High Court decision. Some called it a scathing decision today in Nairobi against those proposed reforms by Uhuru Kenyatta. Thank you for that, Ruben Kiyama in Nairobi. Amnesty International says white people and even dogs were given priority over many locals during an evacuation in northern Mozambique last March. Jihadists targeted the coastal town of Palma, which has a nearby gas project and many foreign workers. Sam Bradpeace says more.
This is not the first time that the Dyke Advisory Group has come under fire from Amnesty International. Back in early March, the private military contractor from South Africa was accused of indiscriminately firing on civilians in Mozambique, even shooting at schools and hospitals. Now, this time around, they've been accused of racial discrimination during their evacuation of the Amarula Palma Hotel, which came under attack from jihadist militants on the 24th of March. It's alleged that the Dyke Advisory Group prioritised the evacuation of white contractors staying at the site over their black counterparts. It's even claimed that the hotel manager managed to sneak his 2 German shepherds onto one of the helicopter evacuation flights, taking up space that could have been used for 2 or 3 other people. Now, in response to this, the Dyke Advisory Group have said that they evacuated 24 people from the site, 6 of whom were white, 18 of whom were black, and all of whom were of different nationalities. Now, their contract to provide aerial support for the Mozambican military expired last month. It wasn't renewed, and one former intelligence officer who's in Mozambique, who I spoke with, said that this could potentially be disastrous. He said the Mozambican military was so incompetent that really without the support of private military contractors such as the Dyke Advisory Group, they would really struggle to push back the jihadist advance.
To South Africa next, and ongoing political tensions in the ruling party, the African National Congress. The Secretary-General, Ace Magashule, is taking the ANC to court over his suspension, a decision taken pending charges of fraud and corruption against him. Magashule is a rival of President Cyril Ramaphosa, and his decision to go to the courts is seen as a direct challenge to Ramaphosa's attempts to rid the ANC of the corruption that has damaged its image. Famine is likely to wreak havoc in Madagascar, says the World Food Programme. The UN agency says 1 million people in the south of the country need immediate food aid. Crop failure is widespread as a result of drought across southern Madagascar, seeing whole communities, including children, suffering from serious malnutrition. Gael Borgia is in Antananarivo.
We will overcome hunger. That's what President Andry Rajoelina repeated during his recent trip to the south. Yet humanitarian organizations are not as confident as he is. The word has been dropped. The United Nations is now talking about famine. In the district of Mbwasare South, 14,000 people are in a situation of catastrophic food insecurity, also known as Phase 5, the highest stage of the United Nations Index. People are now reduced to digging for plant roots to feed themselves or catching locust larvae, which do not provide any nutrients but allow them to survive. It's important to know that the state has anticipated this crisis very badly and put very little money on the table. At the moment, some communes have still not received any food aid. And it must be said that this crisis is being minimized by the authorities and is underreported. It's not the priority for the international donors, and it's one of the most forgotten crises in the world, according to the NGO CARE. Yet the World Food Programme needs $76 million.
To Ghana next, and to focus on how the pandemic has affected worship there for the faithful. As we've seen in many countries, church services and masses have been halted, and while coming together in person to pray is not possible for now, many Ghanaians are tuning in online to get their faith fix.
This worship in one of the capital's radio stations is live streamed on Facebook. Because of COVID, the number of people in churches is limited, and many Christian Ghanaians have had to go online.
During the lockdown, for instance, the participation on Facebook, for instance, was very, very high, since a lot of people couldn't go to church. They had to worship God using our program.
More than 70% of Ghana's 30 million inhabitants are Christian, mainly Pentecostals and evangelists. Since the start of the pandemic, many of them follow their church services on internet, but also funerals.
You can also donate online. You can also wish your beloved condolences online. You can even give out a rose online. They realize that, all those things that we need to be able to organize unique funeral services physically can also be done online.
Half of Ghanaians don't have internet, but the majority of Ghana's population is under 30, and experts say digital access is rising quickly. This church says the live streaming of funerals is also very useful for members of the diaspora who are unable to return home.
And our last report this evening takes us to Libya, where a bikers club was set up in the city of Benghazi back in 2014. And despite the context of near constant conflict since its inception, the club has grown from strength to strength. Laurent Berstecker takes a closer look.
Engulfed in the sound of rumbling engines, an unusual convoy takes to the streets of Benghazi. Tattooed arms resting on their chromed handlebars, dozens of leather-clad bikers parade through alleys and roads, the roar of their Harleys echoing through the war-scarred city. These members of the Benghazi Motorcycle Club hope these near-daily processions can help change mentalities and overcome old stereotypes.
الأغلبية طبعا موتوا كيف ما قلت لك حقوا فيها كشنو كموضوع واحد مجرم ولا واحد صايع. نحن غيرنا الصورة هذه بالكامل.
More than just motorbike enthusiasts, club members regularly take part in local initiatives, whether raising funds for charity or distributing snacks to motorists running late for iftar, the meal breaking the daily fast during Ramadan. Long perceived as criminals and troublemakers, these bearded bikers have become extremely popular in Benghazi and are now considered an integral part of the community.
قبل الثورة كاين نظرة فينا كي يحقوا في الدراجات يحقق على الدراجة يقول لك هذا يعني مش تمام يعني فهمتوا؟ تو بعد نطلعوا يعني تلقى العائلات مع الأولاد نتاعهم يجوا يصوروا على الدراجات والأجواء 100 إن شاء الله.
Founded in 2014 by a group of amateur bikers, the Benghazi Motorcycle Club now boasts over 120 members. Rock and roll and Harley enthusiasts who strive to give a positive image of Libya, a country too often defined by its wars.
All right, that's all for this edition of Eye on Africa. Thank you for watching and good night.